Okay, so the floodwaters have hit, and honestly, what comes next can feel just as overwhelming as the flood itself. Filing an insurance claim is a really complex journey, but you don't have to figure it out alone. In this explainer, we're going to break the whole thing down, step by step, to make it clear, manageable, and hopefully successful for you.
Seeing your home and your memories damaged by water is it's heartbreaking. It's a completely disruptive and emotional experience. But, knowledge is power here, and understanding exactly how your insurance works is really the first most powerful step you can take toward rebuilding. Get ready for this number. It's pretty staggering. Only about 15% of homes in America are actually covered by flood insurance. That shows a huge gap in how prepared we are, and that's a gap we're going to help you close today.
So here's our game plan. We've laid this out to walk you through everything you need to know. We'll start with the absolute basics, then jump into the immediate actions you need to take. After that, we'll get into the details of the claims process, talk about why claims get denied, and finally, get really clear on what your policy actually does and doesn't cover.
Right. Before you can even think about filing a claim, you've got to speak the language of flood insurance. So let's start with a couple of really key definitions from the National Flood Insurance Program, or the NFIP. These really are the foundation for the whole system. So it's really important to get this. A flood, for insurance purposes, isn't just a pipe bursting in your basement. No, it has a very specific, very official definition. It has to be a widespread event. It's got to affect at least 2 acres of land or 2 different properties, and one of those has to be yours. You've probably heard this term before, right? The 100-year floodplain. Sometimes it's called a special flood hazard area. This is the official benchmark that FEMA uses to map out risk and figure out where flood insurance is mandatory for anyone with a federally backed mortgage.
But here's the thing, and this is a big one. That name, it's incredibly deceptive. A 100-year flood does not mean a flood will only happen once every 100 years. Not at all. It actually means there is a 1% chance of a flood that big happening every single year. It could absolutely happen 2 years in a row or even more.
Okay, the storm is past. The water is finally going down. You're standing there, looking at your home. This is such a critical moment, and what you do right now can literally make or break your entire insurance claim. So let's look at the first moves you need to make.
Think of these as your 3 golden rules. First, call your agent immediately. Don't wait. Second, document everything. I mean everything. Take photos and videos of the damage before you touch a single thing. And third, start the cleanup process, but do it safely. This is to prevent more damage, especially from mold, which is your responsibility to handle.
So, once you've made that first crucial call, the formal claims process kicks into high gear. It has a pretty distinct rhythm, a series of steps that you should expect. And knowing what's coming next really helps you stay in control of the situation. Generally, the process follows this flow. It starts with your report, which triggers a call from an adjuster to schedule an inspection. After they come out and assess the damage, you'll get a written report from them, and then, finally, the payment. It sounds simple on paper, but trust me, there are important details at every single stage. Now, here's a huge pro tip for inspection day. A legitimate adjuster will have official ID and something called a flood control number card, or an FCN card. Don't be shy, ask to see it. This simple little step protects you from fraud and makes sure you're dealing with a real authorized representative.
All right, let's talk about what every homeowner dreads, getting that denial letter in the mail. The good news is, a lot of these denials are actually preventable. They usually come from just a few common, avoidable mistakes. Understanding them is your best defense.
So the number one reason claims get denied? Poor documentation. It's like one expert said, pictures, pictures, and more pictures. They tell the story when you can't. The next biggest reason is simply missing the filing deadline, which is often a strict 30 to 60 days. And finally, not understanding what your policy doesn't cover in the first place, which, don't worry, we're about to get to.
Within this whole process, there is one document that is more important than all the others. It's called the proof of loss form. And you absolutely, positively have to get it right, especially if you don't agree with the insurance company's first assessment.
This quote, it comes directly from a federal court ruling. And listen to that language, charitable laxity. What they're saying is there is zero wiggle room, none. The courts are incredibly strict about the requirements for the proof of loss form. Getting it perfect isn't just a good idea, it's mandatory.
So here's the bottom line. If you believe the insurance company's initial offer is too low, this signed sworn document is your only path forward to contest it and get more money. Without it, your appeal for more benefits is basically dead on arrival.
A flood insurance policy is not a blank check. It has very specific limits and exclusions that honestly can be pretty surprising and frustrating if you don't know about them ahead of time. Managing your own expectations starts with understanding these rules right now.
And that brings us to one of the biggest points of confusion and heartbreak for homeowners, the finished basement. You spent all this time and money turning it into a beautiful, usable living space. So what does a standard flood policy actually cover down there?
Well, your policy does cover the essential building systems and the structural parts, so think about the things that make your house function, right? The furnace, the water heater, the electrical systems, the foundation itself, those things are generally covered.
And here's the painful part. The finishes, your beautiful drywall, the nice flooring, other improvements like a bathroom, those aren't covered. Neither is any of your personal property, like your couch or your TV. And this is a big one. A standard flood policy does not cover your temporary housing costs while you rebuild.
So after all of this, what's the key takeaway? It really boils down to two things. You can't control the weather, you can't control the flood, but you can control your paperwork and your calendar. Meticulous, obsessive documentation and hitting every single deadline, that is what gives you power in this process.
Because ultimately, filing a successful claim is about telling a clear, detailed, and undeniable story of what you lost. Your photos, your videos, your receipts, all that paperwork, those are the chapters in that story. The better you tell it, the better the final chapter is going to be.